The area of the Great Lakes and the Straits of Mackinac that has been described as the worst possible place for an oil pipeline rupture. Today, we have with us a container of water from the Great Lakes, from the Straits of Mackinac. Clean, pure water of the Straits of Mackinac, where the Anishinaabek people who lived here first have their creation story. You can see in this clear, clean water what all of us want for the Great Lakes. Canada, Ontario, the United States, and Michigan share responsibility for protecting the Great Lakes. As a reminder of that shared responsibility, we have delivered a similar container of clean Great Lakes water from the Straits of Mackinac to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Odawa. Our message in a bottle to the Prime Minister is history will remember you for the choices that you make right now and the choices that you make today. You can protect our Great Lakes and our climate and support shutting down Line 5 in the Straits of Mackinac, and you need to do so. Or you can support Enbridge and its fossil fuel agenda. But you can't do both. Next, I'd like to introduce Christy McGillivray, Sierra Club Michigan Chapter Legislative and Political Director.
Thanks, Sean. My name is Christy McGillivray, and I am the Political and Legislative Director for the Michigan chapter of Sierra Club. Since May, Enbridge has been operating Line 5 illegally in defiance of the state of Michigan and with support from the Government of Canada. Governor Whitmer's plan to shut down the Line 5 pipeline is both legal and it's the right thing to do. By taking a proactive approach to defusing a ticking time bomb, her plan protects the health and safety of Michiganders while ensuring that our state's energy needs are met. In contrast, Canadian government officials from Ontario to Ottawa have supported Enbridge's defiant refusal to use the time they have been given since November to implement an orderly decommissioning of Line 5 in the Straits of Mackinac. This is the same Enbridge that spilled 1 million gallons of oil in Kalamazoo in 2010 after violating laws and claiming their faulty pipeline was safe. The Kalamazoo pipeline rupture caused the worst inland oil spill in U.S. history. The spill dumped 1 million gallons of oil into the river, threatening residents' health and our drinking water. Records on file with the Federal Pipeline Hazardous Materials Administration document at least 33 spills along the Line 5 pipeline since the 1960s. That does not include a Line 5 spill in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, just a few miles from the Straits of Mackinac in the Hiawatha National Forest, that resulted in 825 tons of soil being excavated and removed to a contamination site. Enbridge kept that spill secret for 30 years. It is past time for Canadian officials to join their neighbors in Michigan and act to protect the Great Lakes and our climate instead of advancing Enbridge's fossil fuel agenda. Canada shares joint responsibility for protecting the Great Lakes with Michigan and the United States. Instead of helping keep the Great Lakes from a catastrophic oil pipeline rupture, Canada should work with us right now, should work with Michigan and the Biden administration and prevent Line 5 from continuing to contribute to our code red climate crisis. We will now hear from Jamie Simmons, Michigan Climate Action Network Engagement Director.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. Hello, everyone. I'm Jamie Simmons, the Engagement Director for Michigan Climate Action Network. There's a simple fact for why we're here today, demanding Canada's support in shutting down Line 5. That fact is the Line 5 pipeline is a threat to our lives. Researchers like Canadian scientist David Suzuki have shared for decades the impact of continued use of fossil fuels. Every day, the Line 5 pipeline carries oil, a fossil fuel, that is causing a major carbon spill in our atmosphere every day, which is warming our planet at alarming rates. This is harming people in this city and in communities around Michigan and Canada. Today, we're living in a time where the effects of climate change are undeniable. This summer alone, Detroit has been hit by several major storms that have caused flooding roads, flooded homes, destroyed properties, left thousands without power in what seems to be one of the hottest summers yet. In June, we experienced the second 500-year storm of this decade. The IPCC report just a few weeks ago came with the same message. If we want to avoid the worst consequences of climate change, we must limit warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. To do so, we must cut global emissions in half by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050. Achieving this goal is what Canada agreed to when it ratified the Paris Climate Accord. Allowing Line 5 to continue to operate or to be replaced by a new oil tunnel, as Enbridge is proposing, is not consistent with that climate goal. Today, we call on Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to work with Michigan's governor and the Biden administration on a decommissioning plan for Line 5. Michigan and independent researchers have studied this intensively, and shutting down the Line 5 pipeline without replacing it is feasible. It's the only way to truly protect our Great Lakes, and it's the only way forward at this point in the climate crisis. Instead of promoting the fossil fuel agenda that Enbridge has been pushing, and that would force us to continue in Canada and the together to create a North American climate plan that has real, clean, equitable solutions to reach net zero emissions by 2050 and uplift climate policies that center Black and Brown communities who are often the first to feel the effects of climate change in our region. Thank you so much, and now I pass it back to
Safest and most sensible path forward to protect our resources and our economy. Enbridge's current business model of operating pipelines until failure is not only a threat to our largest body of fresh water in the world. According to Enbridge, it could cause massive disruptions to energy supplies and our economy. Canada continues to base their support around Line 5 on Enbridge's false promise that a Line 5 tunnel is possible in short order. The facts are that Enbridge always misleads the public on the feasibility of this alternative, which is still close to a decade away, not to mention it does nothing to address the 600 plus miles of nearly 70-year-old pipeline, and it flies in the face of urgent action needed to address the climate crisis we have unfolding before our eyes. Enbridge created this false narrative around a tunnel alternative to divide communities and prolong the life of Line 5. With a legal strategy that's also based around creating as much delay as possible, the Canadian government is now actively working alongside Enbridge to prolong the life of a pipeline that could devastate our way of life. It is inappropriate for any government body to tolerate, let alone advocate for, a company that violates laws and is actively trying to strip states of their rights to manage land and water, ignores the abuses and rights of tribal nations, and puts in jeopardy 20% of the world's fresh water. Now I'd like to introduce Andrea Pierce, chair of the Anishinaabek Caucus of the Michigan Democratic Party and a Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians tribal member. Andrea, thank you for joining us.
Oh no! You guys did that. Almost. Okay. Nadojiba, Bakwa, Nadodum. I'm Andrea Pierce. I am a citizen of the Little Traverse Bay Bands of Odawa Indians. I'm also chair of the Michigan Anishinaabek Caucus. I'm here today, though, representing my tribe. I was asked and honored to be able to speak the words from my tribal chairperson, Regina Gasco-Bentley. And she says, "Ani everyone, miigwech for attending. I am unavailable to attend this event, but I wanted to share this message. Please keep talking about Line 5. Keep bringing up concerns about the safety of this pipeline. Line 5 poses an immediate threat to our Anishinaabek homeland. This water in the straits nourishes our people. It provides critical habitat for our fish and medicines. We depend on healthy, clean water to feed our communities. We know the Enbridge pipeline leak in the Kalamazoo River has been devastating to the ecosystem of the river and the tributaries. We must continue on a path to make people realize the vision we want. Safe water for our next 7 generations. Women, I call on you. We are the water protectors, and we must stand together. Water must be protected. It is time to shut down Line 5. And that was from my tribal chairperson, Regina Gasco-Bentley. Now, I also wanted to add, as myself, that we also have to be careful of Enbridge because they are going to destroy our water and that bottomlands. I don't know if everybody is aware, but I'm part of the team that has discovered the 10,000-year-old cultural sacred site at the bottom of the Lake Michigan there. We haven't had that researched by our people yet. That's part of my history. Part of our history, our tribal history, goes back 10,000 years, and we haven't been able to. We just found it last year. We haven't done anything with this yet, and we need to. We need to research it. We need to find out about it, learn from that, learn from what the people back then were doing, and we can't do that if the water is destroyed and the bottomlands are covered in oil. That will destroy our way of finding information about what happened 10,000 years ago, our history. We need to protect the Lake Michigan, protect Huron. All of the lakes are in jeopardy. All of our water is in jeopardy. When that breaks, think about Kalamazoo. What happened there? Has it been fixed, repaired? Not by my standards. When I walk by there and see oil still, it's not. It'll never be the same. So thank you. Miigwech.
Hi, this is Dave Holtz, and I've got a couple questions from folks who are watching the live stream, but we're going to do a Q&A right now. First, wanted to see if anyone has any questions that Sean can field, or any other speakers who are here today, any reporters, any media.
I just want to clarify, so how many protests are going on and where?
Yeah, thank you. We have events today here in Detroit, as well as across the river in Windsor, and in Milwaukee and Chicago.
Any other questions from here before we go to the text? If you do want to send a text question, it's 313-300-4454. So the first question I got on text from an unidentified media outlet is, what is the status of Line 5 in federal court right now, and is Canada involved with that legal action?
So right now, in federal court, a federal court judge in the Western District of Michigan has asked Michigan and Enbridge to go into mediation, and that mediation has continued fruitlessly for the last 5 months. So today, we're calling on the state of Michigan to put an end to this fruitless mediation, so that whether or not this case belongs in federal court or state court can finally be determined, and we can get on the road to shutting down Line 5 and stopping Enbridge from operating illegally in the Straits of Mackinac.
And I have one other question from text, but if you have other questions, it's 313-300-4454. And Jamie, this might be a question you might want to answer, or Sean. So the question is, what is Prime Minister Trudeau's support for Line 5 mean that he is no longer considered by the environmental community a supporter of action on climate for Canada?
Well, I think the answer to that is kind of centered, and I'll let Sean answer a little bit too. And the fact that even though Canada has vocally supported climate justice and spoke about the mission, reducing our emissions and supporting cutting down fossil fuels, they have also heavily supported Enbridge and heavily uplifted the financial support that they get from the oil pipelines and other fossil fuel companies.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay.
Jamie got it exactly right. Prime Minister Trudeau in Canada, he pretends to be a climate champion. Canada's actually raised their emissions over the last few years, when the rest of the signees to the Paris Agreement have cut their emissions. And you know what? As far as Enbridge goes,
Legally, have there been any penalties imposed by the state of Michigan on Enbridge?
Yeah, great question. So the question was, Enbridge has been operating illegally. What penalties has the state of Michigan imposed on Enbridge? And right now, what the state has done because of Enbridge operating illegally is Attorney General Nessel sent notice the day before Enbridge began operating illegally that the state was going to add charges once they're back in state court for unjust enrichment, which means that Canada is making money by operating that Enbridge is making money by operating illegally in Michigan right now. So the state is going to seek every penny of Canada's profits of Enbridge's profits from Line 5 if they get back into state court here.
So that's pending litigation?
Yes.
Sean, we have one more question that I have in text, and then I think we have another question from one of the folks here. The question in text is, how long? I'm trying to interpret this question. The question is, how long before the pipeline will be in the tunnel? I think that's the question.
So first of all, it's not clear that Enbridge actually ever intends to build this tunnel and that it's not just a delay tactic to begin with. Second, Enbridge won't even have permission to begin digging a tunnel for likely the next 3 years. The Army Corps of Engineers announced they'll be doing an environmental impact statement, which the average environmental impact statement over the last few years has taken 3.5 years to get through. So it's going to be at least that long before Enbridge would even theoretically have permission to start digging. After they start digging, their initial estimate was it would take 10 years. Then they tried backing that off to 5 years. Then they tried saying 3. Nobody really knows. That timeline is way up in the air. What we do know is they won't agree to a date certain for shutting down the existing pipeline, which is a good sign that even Enbridge doesn't know how long digging this theoretical oil tunnel underneath the Straits of Mackinac would actually take. Meanwhile, our Great Lakes would sit there taking on all the risk.
Great. I don't have any more questions from the media. We have, I'm sorry.
One more.
Go ahead.
Is your organization opposed to the Enbridge's plan to build a tunnel under the street?
Yes, we are. The question was, is Oil and Water Don't Mix opposed to building an oil tunnel underneath the Straits of Mackinac? And yes, we are 100% opposed to building an oil tunnel underneath the Straits of Mackinac in an age where, we're already seeing increased storms, increased frequency of droughts elsewhere across the world, and the impacts of climate change accelerating faster than even the most dire scientific predictions. It's not the time to go building an oil tunnel underneath 95% of the American fresh water supply. It's absolutely the wrong time to do that if there ever indeed was a right time.
Okay, we are wrapped up with the press conference. Sean, there's another question, but I want to wrap up the press conference first because it's not from a member of the press. But I do want to thank everyone for coming, for basically being pretty patient with our technology problems. This is really, in the age of COVID, this was the first live press event we've done in 2 years. And of course, there were going to be some issues. But thanks again. And I also want to particularly thank Bill Laka for really going with the flow here and dealing with our technology problems. Thanks again.
Cool.
And then we had a question over here. Sean.
Oh, okay.